Hi, my name is WAHAB, a Sri Lankan race car driver. I am joined by my brother.
Hi, I'm Zakir Wahab and I'm also a Sri Lankan race car driver.
And in this episode of Car and Me, we're going to be talking about our passion for racing, our passion for cars, and our passion for life. From the time that I can remember, our holidays just centered around motor racing. For us, going to Norelia was never about the pony rides and the carnival. It was always about Mahagastota and Radalla hill climb, because my dad used to always race during the season, and then the Norelia road race, and then of course later on Fox Hill Supercross. And even Sundays, there was no going down. I mean, there was the going down south of the beaches, but then it was mainly the Katakurunda races on a Sunday. We'd go and we watch my dad race. So my dad Kasim Wahab, he's been racing for longer than I can remember, because he was racing way before I was born. So I think that's kind of the thing that unlike some people who get interested in motorsports, it was an automatic thing for me.
A family affair first.
It was a family affair, yeah.
My father and my two brothers, my eldest brother Javed Wahab and then SHARQ Wahab, who's my second brother. I mean, they excelled in their fields in the motorsport, and their passion for cars just trickled down onto me. So I really had no choice, and it's not a bad thing to come by, the passion for cars and the passion for motorsport.
Zakir and I actually took quite different paths into motor racing. My first type of car event was a stock sedan. It was a Toyota Sprinter, and it used to run in a stock event called 8 to 10 kg per horsepower. It was a relatively slow car, but my dad always said, you have to start at the basis, because then, if you go straight away into a very fast car or a competitive motorsport, you will not be able to handle it. So he wanted to build up my driving skill, and he put me in a slower car, and then slowly I moved up the category. But I had been racing for, I don't know, when was it that you started racing?
In 2011.
2011. So I had been racing for 10 years by the time Zakir came into motorsports, and he took a completely different path. In Zakir, would you like to tell about
I actually first co-drove my brother Ishraq in the Honda in one of the rallies.
Yes.
And we did quite well, and Ishraq showed me the ropes on basically participating and taking part in a motorsport event, and how it is to have both the highs and the lows of motorsport. And subsequently, when I joined motorsport and did driving on my own, I took part in the Formula 1300 category. So they had a driver training program here, and Ishraq, he encouraged me to do it, since we had one of the trainers, Akbar Ibrahim from India, to train us. And I got chosen in the top 10 in Sri Lanka to participate in this program. And my first year of racing was in a Formula 1300, and I subsequently moved on to stock car racing, which was two completely different types of racing. And I mean, it took a bit of time to adapt to stock car after Formula, but it was fun and a good experience as well.
steps that Zakir took into motor racing, from going from go-kart and then to Formula and then moving to the sedan, was actually the correct steps that even international racing drivers take part. I mean, here I was just straight away into a sedan, and then I gained experience and learned my technique as I was doing, learned my racecraft as I was racing. But Zakir had a more formal approach, if you would say, with a training program and a championship centered around single-seater racing cars, where they were monitored and raced and, racing competitively in an equal formula, where you race against another 9 competitors who have the same equipment as you. Whereas I was thrust into an event where 6 competitors were racing 6 different vehicles. So it was a little difficult to evaluate myself, whether it was myself that needed improvement, which always the case as a racing driver. You always assume that you need some improvement. But of course, the variation in cars also leaves to question of how much you need the car to improve. So Zakir had a different approach to motorsport, but I think in the end, after so many years, it kind of levels off.
Kind of levels off.
Yeah. Zakir, I like your car.
I loved your car before I got mine.
All right, so if you can see, we both got Subarus. It's kind of a thing with our family, the passion with Subarus. The reason was our dad, he and Kasim WAHAB and Bandula Veerasinghe, my dad Kasim WAHAB and Bandula Veerasinghe were the first people in Sri Lanka to race Subarus. It was the Subaru legacy at the time, and at that time, you know, no one had seen a 2-liter turbocharged 4-wheel drive car motor racing in Sri Lanka, and it just completely changed the face of Sri Lankan racing. I mean, if you see today the supercar event, the SLGT event, which I compete in, runs the same format, 2-liter turbocharged cars, and the original beginnings were in 1992-93 when the first Subaru legacies came to Sri Lanka, and then my brother Javed Wahab, he raced a Subaru Impreza. I raced a Subaru. I've owned 2 Subarus. This is my second road running car, and of course we're not going to let Zakir get away without having his Subaru as well. I think it was a natural progression, you know. My dad did motor racing, our dad did motor racing, and our elder brother Javed was racing as well. So going for all the races and, you know, watching them compete and experiencing the highs and the lows together with them, and seeing, you know, my dad being, you know, a victor and a hero, you know, was the inspiration to get me into motor racing, and I'm sure. You know.
Yeah, that's the same copy-paste answer for me as well, because it's the same progression for me, same way.
It's been 18 years now since I started driving my own car. Of course, you know, I was involved in racing because I was co-driving for my dad from about 25 years ago. So. But 18 years since I've been driving my own car. And you, Zakir?
So I'll have to take a decade off of that. It's been 8 years for me, so this is my 8th year of racing, from starting from formulas.
Fantastic. Well, I think that's very easy because Bullion Exchange, you know, where we work at, kind of supports motor racing. You know, we run as Bullion Exchange racing team, so taking off the weekends to go for a race is quite. It's not easy with work commitments, but it is doable. You know, I mean, I don't think we had to dream of racing.
Yeah.
We were kind of living the dream.
Maybe actually that's a more apt answer, I would say.
That's an apt answer. We were living the dream, and then it was part of an extension of just continuing living that dream. And mashallah,
mashallah, yes.
We're so lucky.
Gravel. Okay, circuit or rally?
Rally, definitely. Definitely, I love rally.
I mean, I've not run a rally yet on my own since I've been co-driving you for the past 10 years. But yeah, once I do rally on my own, then I can give the answer to that. It's a massive impact. If you don't have the correct support crew, you know, I mean, sometimes, you know, when you go for a race weekend, even having the right people, you know, to just give you that
the words of encouragement, and sometimes when you feel like, oh, you're not driving well, or, you just feel like, oh, it's going to be a bad day, and your friend comes and tells, no, oh, Macha, you can do it, drive hard, Sometimes you just, that little pep talk, and and when I go for a race weekend and you're there and you come and wish me before the race,
that really
gives us, and also after the race, we have people to enjoy it with.
Shall we start with first being a racer in Sri Lanka? Because I think that will be a more question for the audience also.
Yeah.
So what type of experience and exposure, or what type of background?
I think luckily, karting is a good way to get into it.
Yeah.
I mean, back in the day we didn't have much go-karting, so I kind of skipped that step. I know you managed to do a lot of karting when you were in university in Malaysia, and you did Formula when you came back here, but I skipped that step completely.
Okay.
But I would always recommend anybody to go into karting. You get a feel of what it is to drive a car fast, you get a feel of losing control, and then after that you have to follow the licensing system. There are a couple of events that rookies are able to compete always.
Okay, but what if someone doesn't want to do karting, doesn't want to do open wheel racing, and only wants to do stock car racing? Then what could be the option?
Best option is to see the class that they can enter. It's probably a Nissan March
1000cc
or a Mini 7.
Mini 7 would be a bit too advanced, I suppose, for people who don't have, like you say, a background.
March is the correct. The Nissan March event. Get the license, get the safety gear, get a Nissan March, and run 1 year without thinking of where you finish. Just run 1 year. As many races as you can.
How was your first race actually? That was your first?
Well, actually, even though it was 18 years ago, sometimes you might not remember your first race, but I very clearly remember it. It was at a track in Avisavela called the Taldur Supercross. They don't have it anymore. And I started the race, I think, I qualified third fastest, but because it was my first race, they had a rule back in the day that the rookie, because it was my first race, they called me a rookie, put a big red sticker on the back of my car and put me to the back of the grid. Right? So
even though you qualified third?
Even though I qualified third. Okay. So this was the regulations at the time. So the first lap started and someone had jumped the start, but the marshals, instead of I think yellow flagging the race or red flag, or they decided to red flag the race, and they stopped the two cars in front. And even though I started 5th or 6th, I was up to 3rd at that point on the first lap, and the two guys stopped in front and I stopped behind them, and two cars that were racing behind did not know that the red flag had stopped, and that guy came and smashed into the back of my car, and I went and hit the car in front, and there was like a 5-car pile-up on the first lap on the start-finish straight. And there was it was absolute chaos, my seat had broken. I got down, and I remember very vaguely my dad there and everybody there, and then out of nowhere, that's the beauty of the sport, out of nowhere people came and they took my car, and one guy brought a truck and he winched the car from one side, and another guy brought his truck, and they just basically pulled the car out, because the tire had gone and got stuck inside. And within about an hour and a half, they had the car somewhat ready to race again, and I took part in that race. And I finished 3rd on my debut. So
that's a really memorable race.
It was a real baptism of fire as a first race, but because it was so crazy, I still remember it to this
day. Do you
day.
think that, we could do that with the current way we are running now? Repair a car like that and run with chassis balance off?
I don't think so. I think more than anything, safety has taken a huge upturn in motorsports. Back in the day, I was wearing a racing suit, but I know lots of competitors, they were in shorts and they were in shoes and short sleeve t-shirts. the head and neck system that we wear now.
Hand support system.
Hand support system was not compulsory. Fire extinguishers, they were there in the car, but it was not compulsory. 6-point roll cage was not compulsory. So, but as with all motorsports internationally, even in Sri Lanka, motorsports has changed quite dramatically, and the safety standards have improved thanks to all the drivers and the governing body and the officials and the clubs. The safety standards also have improved.
Because I think I came into racing once, all these standards had set in place. So I just rely on your stories to keep me entertained, back in the day of how crazy things used to be.
Yeah, back in the day, crazy things. We used to turn up for qualifying in shorts and a t-shirt and save our race suit for the race day so that it won't get dirty. You've been racing for a long time, and we've been through all the racing tracks in Sri Lanka. So, which one is your favorite?
I think we both have the same favorite track, or not?
I don't know.
Shall we go on 1, 2, 3?
Okay.
1, 2, 3.
Gajaba.
Okay, definitely not the same track.
All right. Okay. So you want to tell us more about Fox Hill?
Yeah, I got my first pole in Fox Hill in the modified 1500. And the danger of the track is, I think, what allures me there.
Okay.
Yeah. How about Gajaba?
Well, I like Fox Hill, but every time I come, there's this section where you're coming down the hill, at about 140 kilometers power, and I just feel like my stomach comes into my throat, even after racing there for almost 18 years, So that's, it's not that I don't like Fox Hill, but, every time I think about Fox Hill, the nerves on my hair stand on end, even after 18 years. But for me, Gajaba, I don't know, it's something like I can drive that track with my eyes closed, I don't feel like I need to go there to practice. I know exactly if I'm taking a vehicle, what setup it needs to be done. And when I was running the Truck and Jeep Open event, I won at Gajaba from 2012 to 2017 for 6 years in a row in that event, and I won in the SLGT event. The last Subaru to win a SLGT race was my Subaru at Gajaba. So I don't know, that particular track in Anuradhapura holds a special place in my heart. Currently, I'm racing a Mitsubishi Evolution 9 in the SLGT 3500cc event, which is also called the Supercar event. I've been competing in this event since 2012, and I ran two Subarus, a Subaru STI-8 and then a Subaru Impreza Type R 2-door for the last for 5 years, and then last year I switched to the Evolution with 2 events, and this year I've competed about 60% of the season. I missed a couple of races because I was traveling overseas, but I competed about 60% of the season in the Evolution, and it's been pretty good. We've been on the podium a few times, so some more development to come in the car, some more track time is needed on my perspective, but overall I've enjoyed running in the pack, and I've enjoyed being competitive, and I've enjoyed taking a car from standard and building it up to scratch, because it's almost like a little pet to me, and over a period of time when you build a car, you get attached to it, so, and you know exactly what the car is doing. So I've got a lot of people who help me out as well, and it's been a thoroughly enjoyable experience, and I can't wait for next season to kick in as well. Zakir?
Yeah, so currently I run the modified 1500, the Honda category, and also the SLH 1600 Honda category. And this was the Hondas were my first foray after the formulas, and I've had SHARQ and Javed, both Honda experts, to guide me on everything Honda related. So my 2016 and 2017 championships, I would have to give them and my parents and everyone who guided me and who taught me how to drive, not sat me down and taught me, but by experience, So yeah, so thanks a lot for that. Yeah, that's been a memorable experience.
So are you waiting for me to retire so you can take my Evo as well?
I think that's what happened with the Honda, so I'll have to cross my fingers and wait.